Assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Welcome everybody to today's stream. So I tried to get this topic out last week. I had some kind of a trouble sleeping that time, so apologies for not being there on time or at all. But I think it was meant to be because I've kind of been looking at some new information with what you can see on the screen. Let me know if you guys can see my screen. That's really what we're going to be talking about mainly. If we kind of have some more time, we can just kind of open it up to some other things I wanted to talk about the months and the calendar and everything that I had planned originally, but now I just I feel like this is a bit more important to start with. All right. Yeah, Assalamu alaikum, Soaring Bird. Welcome to the stream. Assalamu alaikum, Sam. Assalamu alaikum, Kenneth Blaine. Salamun, brothers and sisters. Salamun, Carnutics. Welcome to the stream. Salamun, Circumnavigation. Salam, Omar Javaid. Yeah, Happy New Year. Actually, that's a pretty good segue too, because yeah, the New Year is always different every year for Muslims only. But yeah, it's not sure where you are in the world circumnavigation, but basically it kind of Muharram starts tomorrow, so yeah. Peace, Brother Daniel Marinakis. Welcome to the stream. Peace, Anis. Yeah, so let me know what you guys think. Oh, Netherlands, nice. I think I remember before that. Just forgot. Netherlands, yeah. Salam Farouk Ahmed. Welcome to the stream. Yeah, let me know, guys, if my sound is good. I'm not cutting off or anything, but yeah, I just I feel like there's a lot of things in the Quran that evade human perception. Let me explain what I think about that. So the idea is that we assume the Quran to just be mysterious, right? No less, that's why they call this topic mysterious letters. Apparently, nobody has figured it out. Nobody cares to delve deeper. They just leave that to the educated class to explain and dumb down for us. I know that there have been many attempts and, like all kinds of different variations of the quote unquote Muslims. Yeah, thank you, Daniel. Circumnavigation. That's good to hear. That sounds good. Salam Elias. Salam, brother Macallan Kali. Okay. So we assume that there's just examples of just indecipherable aspects of the Quran. And Alex, I am kind of getting to that as well. I really do hope to kind of review Sam Gerrans' interpretation of this. From what I remember, it was back in the day, he released like a 7-hour video. And he said, well, sorry, but this is the only way I can tell you this in 7 hours. So I guess you can't simplify it beyond that, but I really want to review that and see what he gets out. There's some issues usually, but the point of this is not to definitively show you what it is. Allah knows best at the end of the day. But I feel like, we're just too accustomed to the idea that everything is just metaphysical and metaphorical and based on assumptions and stuff. And by and part, that's usually what we get in the world of tafsir. But what if I told you, you know, all you have to do is just compare all the different ways the letters are used. And by no means this is anything near complete. This is something literally just kind of piecing together even yesterday. But I thought it was important enough to see what you guys think, because this is a major issue in the um, Quran studying with Muslims, let alone people that are Quran based. Um, so these letters exist. They're not just inscribed in there, just they're ayahs. And because they're ayahs, that's from God. That's from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So it's interesting that when you just kind of frame the Quran conceptually, what do you see? You see the first surah, I should say, is Al-Fatiha. Interestingly, these letters are called fawatih. They say that means openers. No, because opener has a shadd on the ta. Fattah. You know how Allah is called Al-Fattah, the one who opens, the opener. So Fatiha is about conquest, the conqueror. So these are your way of conquering the Quran. If you understand these letters, and bear in mind that this is evolving, because we don't get the privilege of having everything handed down to us in our time. Maybe in the times of the prophets, you would have this kind of didactic experience where, oh, Nabi, can you explain this thing? And he would explain it, and everybody would be all happy because there was no test at that time, because the prophet was there, let alone all the other prophets. In our time, we just have this book. So you can see there that they're called huruf muqatta'at. And correct me if I'm wrong, but qata' is something that's literally cut. Like you have the word in English even resembles qata', cut. So the letters are, essentially on their own. And so people just describe there's no meaning to them because they're not words. But like I was saying, the first surahs are essentially the largest. And the last ones are some of the smallest ones in size and length. Yet, the profundity is matched. So you do get tons of information from, let's say, Surah Al-Baqarah, Surah Al-Imran, right? But the last ones, like Surah Al-Kawthar, you get just as much information in a different way. The way the Quran is structured is exactly like the creation, in the sense that everything is paired. Allah created all things in pairs. That's how you know the creation finds its pair, either in this life or definitely by the time the hour is established. Salam, brother Danny. Salam, brother Aaron BV. Salam, brother Muhammad Junaid. Salam, solo music. Okay. So I asked myself the question, how many of them are there? There are many variations of these letters, clearly, right? Like you have entire chapters, or I should say surahs of the Quran that are named after them. That's how you know it's significant. Qaf, Sad, Yasin, Taha. Exactly 4. They throw in there 5 chapters because, remember, these people that call themselves Muslims, they believe in tahrif of the Quran. That's what they call it. But they believe in that actually. They will never admit that. You'll see even in this article that they can't agree if Bismillah is part of the Quran. They can't agree if Surah Al-Qalam is called chapter Noon. So the chapter of the pen, they don't know if it's called Noon or the pen. They don't know if it's called, chapter 17 is called Al-Isra or Bani Israel. Doubt. When you see this guessing, that's conjecture, that's assumptions. And that's what you get from the Islamic scholarship. When you go to the mosque, they don't have the answers. They just don't. You leave you with more questions. So if you haven't figured by now, Allah wants us to do the work. You listening in, wherever you are, He expects you to strive with this Quran the best you can. So then you have 4 of these surahs, right? And what are the odds? 2 of them are named after 1 letter. 2 of them are named after 2 letters. It's a perfect match. The idea behind this is there's symmetry in the Quran. Symmetry is a sign of intelligence because it's a pattern that's ordered. Indeed, all patterns are ordered, but when you have that, and but let me just let you know that this stuff is discovered. It's not figured out. It's not invented. It's always discovered. When somebody discovers a principle or phenomena in nature, that's from the creator. And even the theories we have are just kind of, a lot of it is just misunderstandings of the real order, right? Sad and Qaf are the only 2 surahs that resemble each other in their structure, in the sense of the title itself, right? If you don't know by now, the surah titles are preserved. Everything is preserved in the Quran you're reading. No Muslim will ever admit that. Funny, I thought they believe in this book. Anyway, Taha, Yasin. The titles match the same order, the pattern being a title named after 2 letters in succession. The first ayah has those letters as well. But these particular chapters or surahs are named after them. Salam, New Path No Return. Welcome to the stream. So, of course, they let you know the original significances of the letters is unknown. But let me ask you something. Allah could have put anything in there. Why did He put those letters? We're inquisitive beings. We're curious. We want to figure things out. That's how Allah designed us. Because we're put in a state of ignorance since birth. So it's not like I can remember, the history of my ancestors since I'm born. I have to figure things out in this life as best I can. These letters are from the Arabic language. We have the Arabic language. There's no denying. You can find that pretty much everything, the more you study it, confirms itself. And everything that comes to you naturally, intuitively like that, without you having this bias, just testing the theory out, you can be rest assured there is a truth to that. Because you're not coming with a preconceived notion or a presupposition. So they're Arabic letters. Why would Allah use Arabic? That means every letter has a meaning. It's not just actually, and you can actually find there are meanings to these letters the more you go in. This is really, it's a really advanced knowledge. The reason why is because It's just something that requires a lot of careful analysis to figure out, what the letters actually mean. 114 chapters, and there's combinations between 1 and 5 Arabic letters in a set each time these letters are mentioned, right? They always come right after Bismillah, first ayah. And scholars are empty-handed. They abbreviations for Allah's names or qualities. Well, that would make sense. He would just tell you. He would tell you those qualities. He doesn't need to abbreviate things like we do in the business world. And yeah, this is what we're left with. Their meaning is only known to Allah. Yes, correct. No doubt. He has the full picture. We're just in that picture, right? So does that mean it's impossible? No, it's not impossible. Salam, brother Daffy Logs. Welcome to the stream. Solo music, yeah. If you're not aware, that Channel Endgame Islam, we collaborated a lot. Basically, part of the channel as well. So yeah, you can check that out as well. They have some great videos. All right, let's move on here. You guys get the idea. So let's move on. Does it say here? So you guys can see on the screen, right? Like, this is the collection of these muqata'at, right? As you know, I can scroll down more. But I wanted to highlight something for you. In case you don't think your scholars have it out to get you, look at this. Where is it? Okay. These people, whoever they were in history, Ubay ibn Ka'b, I'm not sure if he was a Jewish convert to Islam or not, but in the early days of Islam, throughout its alleged 1400 years of history, they have constantly put doubt on the authenticity of the Quran, almost like they're enemies of the Prophet Muhammad and the book he was sent with. This person, Ubay ibn Ka'b, is one of the Prophet Muhammad's companions of high esteem, Abu Mundhir. You know, the people of Medina were actually hypocrites. Prophet couldn't know who they were. The whole geography and history of the Quranic account is a totally different topic. But my point is, this person apparently said that there's another surah that begins with Hamim. And I'm going to show you why I put all of the ones I could find. It's not perfect, but did my best. Chapter 39 does not start with Hamim. So where did he get that from? He just invented it. There is a pattern with Hamim, but if you go to chapter 39, there's no Hamim there. So how can you claim something about the Quran that's a lie? It's easy to disprove, right? Anyway, sometimes it'll say that multiple letters are written together like a word, but each letter is pronounced separately. That's correct. Some people will say that those are words. They're not letters. So what is the meaning of alaf and alamdo, alams? That doesn't mean anything. They're clearly letters. And yes, you find, throughout the Quran, alam. Alam tara kayfa. Alam has no meaning by itself. That's how Surah Al-Baqarah starts. Um, so you guys get the picture. Different combinations of Arabic letters, specifically Arabic letters. Sometimes they're there once, sometimes in pairs, sometimes like in chapter 20, chapter 42, you have 5 of them, right? This is what I want to get to here. Did you know there's exactly 14 different letters used? 1/2 exactly of the Arabic alphabet. That's not a coincidence. Yeah, welcome, brother Chris. Welcome to the stream. Omer Javaid, yeah, thanks. I have a Discord if you want to message. Let me just put it in the chat here for you. One sec. I just ask you don't spam my Discord. So yeah, thank you for coming and have a lovely rest of your day. There's 14 different letters used. You can count them. I looked at each one. So if you look here, it says the 14 letters are alif, ha, ha, ta, ya, kaf, lam, mim, nun, sin, ain, sad, qaf, ra. Exactly 14. In the Arabic language, the alphabet has 28 distinct sounds. There's a distinct way you write each one. Even with like every single aspect of the Arabic language has order. It's not random. They would like you to believe that these things are just like Bismillah and all. It's just like they just wrote it in there and some scribe, you know. No, they're divine. Why don't we look at what the actual language is? Because, like I mentioned, there's exactly 28. And I'm going to share this screen here. Okay. So, this is the Arabic alphabet called the abjad. The letters in the alphabet that have a plus sign next to it are the ones that are those are the ones that are in the Quran as these muqatta'at. So the question is, why those ones? Notice when you go through the Quran, you're going to be asking yourself, why a lot. Why did Allah do this? Why was this prophet sent here? Why did Allah use this word and not another word for this particular story? The purpose of religion is ultimately why. Why am I here? Why is the world like this? Hence, it gives you purpose, right? Because if you know the why, everything else follows. We're told in the opposite of that, how. That's also important. But I think when you start with why, you'll find that you're going towards the right track because you're not making assumptions. You're leaving it open for the evidence from the revelation to point you in the right direction. Okay. So I just want to highlight that this is very well known that the Arabic language has patterns that are built on these 28 sounds. There's even a consistency, there's a validity to the way that they're shaped even. But I'm going to save that for another time once I look at it more. Um, one of the patterns, perhaps you're already aware of this, but just to show you, is what's known as sun letters and moon letters. Okay. Oops. Maybe if I can go. Okay. So again, there's the whole alphabet. You can see it on the screen. The red letters are called sun letters. This is standard mainstream Arabic 101. What that means is when it's preceded by a definite article in a word, you make a sort of connection between the al, the of the word, and the first letter. So, for example, for ta, you don't say al-Tawrat. You would say at-Tawrat, the Torah. Athani, the second. There's no al-Thani. It's athani. And so on and so forth. You can do with all those letters. The black ones have the opposite. So you can see there's esoteric meaning behind everything, as it should be, because it's from God. The moon letters, they don't have this. They just go on as normal. So like if you have the moon, it's called Al-Qamar. Even the moon is named after this, right? I think this is part of the reason why people gave it this nickname. But the word for sun, Shams. Ash-Shams. There's no lam in the pronunciation. So 14 and 14. You divide it up, you get a lunar cycle of 28. If a lunar cycle is 28 days, 4 weeks of 7, a month. And what seems to be the case is that this array of 4 and 7 is not a coincidence, right? In fact, something that I've been really looking at deeply is why are these the sounds that comprise the Arabic language and not something else? In the Quran, maybe I should show you guys on the screen. I mentioned this in a live stream last week, I think. The Quran is called a tongue. Literally, it's called a tongue. Share this. You guys can see that, eh? Maybe I should zoom in. Okay. Sometimes they shy away from using the word tongue, but that's what it means. Lisan. Lisanan Arabiyan. It's repeated so many times. This language, this method of communication, that is really the only one that this revelation could be revealed in, spoken by the angels, spoken by the jinns, spoken by humans of history, literally all of them, spoken by Allah, the creation. The heavens and the earth speak this language because they say they respond to Allah. That's so profound. The creation is built on this order of sound. And when you're a detective, right, trying to search for the truth, use deductive reasoning, you can't ignore these coincidences. In fact, you're not allowed to believe in coincidence. And this is how the Quran treats the reader of the Quran. Think, reflect, meditate, remember, reason upon these ayahs. Today we have this phenomenon of hundreds and hundreds of languages in the world. The word for that in Arabic is lugha, not lisan, lugha. that is given a different treatment in the Quran. That root. In Allah's perspective, that concept is just pointless utterances. It has no effect in actuality. Okay? You can see it on the screen. Lagha, lagwi, vain talk, ill speech, thoughtless utterances, futility to make noise. It's sound, but it's not following the order. I'm sorry to say the language I'm presenting this in would fit under this category. Arabic does not. And there's a real lesson in that, right? Because some of these verses are about the hereafter. The companions of paradise will not hear lagwi, lagwa, ill speech. So, yeah, we have a certain conception of what we expect to find in the hereafter. But guess what? Allah has the actual reality. And He says, no, there's none of these things in the hereafter. Everything is perfected by design, right? So, whatever corruption happened in our communication systems called languages, that will be reconciled by the end of time in space. And really, to hit the point home that there's corruption in the concept of language and linguistics, they even call changes in languages officially corruptions. For instance, this Arabic word is a corruption of the Persian word firdaus. This Arabic word is a corruption of the Greek word strata. They call them corruptions. What is that supposed to imply? The changing of languages is part of how they corrupt in the earth, the corruptors. They don't view themselves as that. They view themselves as reformers, but they're corruptors. So now I understand all we have to work with from the Quran is this Arabic language. And it's really important to stress, do not underestimate the capabilities of this language and the book it revealed, the book that uses this language called the Quran. The reason I say that is because what we're spoon-fed, us peasants and consumers, we're spoon-fed, this is a useless book. Nobody can figure it out, and it doesn't have any impact on anything. It doesn't match the reality. It's just another plagiarism of all the scriptures, and all the stories don't make sense, and its lessons are just simple things for simple people. Wrong. The people that say that have a lot of fingers and a lot of pies in the world, they don't treat this book like that. They treasure this book more than Sunni Muslims, more than average people. Why? Because they understand how powerful it is, what it represents. If somebody told you the creator of the heavens and the earth and you and reality and time and space gave you his verbatim speech, how would you treat that? If you believe that, how would you treat that? That's profound. That's about the most profound possible thing that can exist. The only entity outside the creation communicating with the creation. Just think about what that means. That's beyond all control, all human interference and jinn interference. That is a statement to be reckoned with. And I'm glad you brought it up, Brother Danny. They always say these Arabic words come from Greek, Latin, Persian. Greek, Latin, Persian have redundant sounds. and they don't even come close to the amount of letters in the Arabic alphabet. Why would an Arabic Quran have Persian words, Somali words, Greek words, Latin words? Does that make sense? That's a lie. That's all it is. These languages are less advanced than Arabic, and they're used to explain the origin of Arabic. Okay? It's a miracle. And they do this on purpose to basically gaslight you to think that what you have in your hands has no authority, no power. Opposite. It's the opposite of that. It will be proven true as time goes on. So you can kind of see that we cannot underestimate what we have here. Oh, there's many qira'at and nobody knows how to pronounce this, and the language of Arabic has been lost. They're all excuses. They're just excuses for people that can't deal with the reality. The reality is this transcribed copy, because that's what nasakh means, ansakh, transcribed copy of Allah's speech is preserved. End of story. His kalimat do not change. And believe me, I said before many times, if they wanted to change this, you wouldn't even know it exists. They can't. Yeah, Alex, it's a bit of a kind of tedious process, but like for example, I'll give you an example here. It's not like a one size fits all because they've used different methods to cloak things in the Quran. Like for example, what you see on the screen there, that's one word. Lagwi, lagwan, lagwi. That's one word. And look how many different translations you get from it. Redundant, ambiguous. They're trying to hide what's glaringly obvious. And let's say for Fatiha, right? Like that, everything is based on these roots. You need three symbols or letters or numbers in a series to make a code, a pattern. So that's why 3 is the minimum to build words from roots. That word fatah, for example, I use as an example in the beginning of the stream. Let me show you this, guys. Okay, you guys can see this, right? It's not something that's hard to see, right? Like, take one sound. Fatih. Opener, beginner, first day of the month, appetizer, conqueror, victor. And then Fatiha is just the feminine version. It's tedious. You have to go through all of the different things in that one root. Then you have to look on how this word is used. I'm going to show you one sec here. I've talked about this in live stream 8, I believe. You have to look how it's used, right? So you don't actually do any interpretation. It's just a conclusion. It has to logically follow. Like that's what came about with looking at the meaning of salat, right? When you find out that sallu, sad lam waw, and sad lam ya, same root. Because there's no separation. They're used the same way. So basically, you just kind of have to really pretend like you don't know anything. Okay, and when you look at these words, for example, you really do have to reflect a lot on this. Victory, judgment, decision, those are all different concepts. Al-Fattah, they put as judge. I remember back in the day, like, you always say Allah is the opener. Fattah. But you just said that Fatiha means opener. So you see, when you get to a certain contradiction, you have to untie that knot. The way you untie it is, you know, basically there has to be a box everything fits in. Okay. I'm going to have to do a live stream on this so you guys can see the process, right? And eventually what you're left with is all the words from a particular root in the Quran have their all unique meaning across the Quran that works with the grammar. For example, ambiguity cannot exist in the Quran. Victory is nasr, nasr. So what's fatah? Well, you go, I mean, you look at how the word is used. It's all about conquest. Look, here it says opened, open, accessible, right? But I just showed you how that's mufattah. There's a shad and the ta. Maftuh is conquered. Look, fatah is both introduction and conquest. So what I think happened is they couldn't actually get rid of the language. No way. So they introduce fake meanings that make the meanings ambiguous. That's why people think the same word can be translated different ways throughout the Quran. They actually say this. No, there's one meaning per word that encompasses all its uses in the Quran. So really, if you want to tackle this, I encourage you to do so. You'll get better at it the more you familiarize yourself. You'll say, why do they change the meaning only in this verse? Everywhere else is the same thing. So it's not derailing by any means. I think it's a very important question because we're kind of given an advantage in a way. Everyone is given an advantage in some respect, right? But the advantage for people that don't speak Arabic natively is that they don't have the baggage that comes with the meanings, right? Same thing with people that do speak Arab natively. They have an advantage because they use the words all the time. They have some evidence to bring forward with them, right? So I think that when you talk about a methodology, I don't want to use that word. It's maybe it's a process or something. Really, what you're looking at is a process of elimination that deals with things logically. So, for example, one meaning cannot be ascribed to two different words. That's logical. That means there's ambiguity in the code Allah put in the Quran. It's just, there's no assumptions. It's all based on prerogatives. How a word is used today in Arabic can give you insight on how it changed. Sometimes a word is used today correctly, and in the Quran they translate it incorrectly. You just have to do a pantextual analysis, which apparently people have done, but it hasn't bore any fruit. Maybe what would be a good idea is to establish principles, okay? Like inviolable principles, like in mathematics, right? That have to be true in order for us to accept anything from the Quran. Number one, it's not changed. If it's changed, forget about translating. Number two, every single word, every single exact word has to have the same meaning across the Quran. If it doesn't, then it's ambiguous, it's subjective. If it's subjective, then any person will find whatever they want in the Quran because they can interpret anything at will. Those are just two principles. But trust me, sticking to this Quran as a standard that can't change It's ubiquitous. That is what it means for it to be al-Furqan, the separator, divider, distinguisher. Because everything else outside of the Quran that's not Allah's revelation doesn't have this property. Anyway, I hope you got some benefit from that. Yeah, so Miss Ali, thank you for bringing me back to the topic of relevance. The reason why it's called a tongue is because that is what the Arabic language is produced on, around the tongue. This is called makharij al-haruf, the ejection or articulation, springing forth of the places of springing forth of the letters of the Arabic language. Every time you pronounce any one of these letters, it will always be from the same place in your oral cavity, from the bottom of your throat to the tip of your lips. And the tongue is the instrument for that. That's why Arabic is called lisan. So think about that, Miss Ali. This language, this form of communication is centered around your biology. No two sounds are the same. And it's so precise that people can forget to or lose the ability to pronounce certain sounds. For example, in Hebrew, they use the sound ha a lot. Like, for example, the word for bread, lahmi. It's supposed to be meat in Arabic, but in Hebrew it means bread, lahmi. Or a good one is probably hummus. You know, the chickpea spread in the Middle East. But Hebrew speakers don't have that muscle trained enough in their oral cavity. So they say hummus, lechem. It becomes a ch. This is why the language is so important. It can be lost. And what replaces it are subpar substitutes for sounds. Like in Turkish, they could easily pronounce things as w, but they pronounce it as v. There is no v. Yeah, Omar Javed, that's my username. It's not a Discord server. That's just my username, okay? Sorry. So that's why Musa asks for this around his tongue, because that is the language Musa spoke. You know, there's a lot of things around the Quran centers around mother. I know I'm getting sidetracked, but we're doing pretty good on time. Mother of cities. Mother of the cities, right? Mother of the book. al-Kitab. What else do you have? The Prophet is called Al-Ummi. People he sent to, Ummiyin. The nation of the Muslims, and indeed other nations. Ummah. Why is everything centered around mother? Your native language, colloquially, is called your mother tongue. Because there is a mother tongue. Just like there's a mother civilization that gave rise to all of its offspring civilizations, its offshoots. And I would suggest that mother tongue is Arabic. Simple. He created you, and the principles he created you with are true to this day. Yeah, it's a tongue. If you don't have a tongue, you can't pronounce any of these letters in the language. It's just tongue all the way through. That's what people always understood to be language. The word language comes from Latin, lingua. That's the word for tongue. In Slavic, the word for language is jezik. That literally means tongue. Lisan. Even some of the most popular dictionaries or, grammar, vocabulary, they call it lisan al-Arab, the tongue of the Arabs. He's always understood the communication system of the human race is around the human tongue. Thank you. Yeah, that's a great point. I'm just gonna move on, but I'm glad you brought that up. Like all the sounds, like first sounds you hear, mama, baba, la, a, da. These sounds start to form, the simplest ones, and later in life to the more advanced ones. So, if these sounds are produced in specific areas of the human anatomy, doesn't that tell you that there's relationships between those sounds due to their nearness, due to how they're produced? What I mean to say is, if you take the word ba, and I'm glad that you brought that up, Miss Ali, that mama and baba, because that's one of the biggest proofs, really. Ma. You're using your lips to make that a more strong emphasis on that sound. It becomes ba, ma, ba. You see, it's more strong, and that's correct, Kenneth Blaine. Even toddlers can pronounce some of the harder letters like ain or ha. Adults cannot pronounce that have not practiced, but children and toddlers can. SubhanAllah. It's intrinsic to us. So what I realized, and I'm sure people have come to the same conclusion, is that of the 28 Arabic letters, there are pairs that go together. I did make a video on, that was my first attempt to make pairings in the sounds of the Arabic letters. And I started working more and more on that to find out what impact does that have on the meaning of words made from those sounds. It has a huge impact. So, for example, mama, that's mother, right? Pretty much every language has mama. Baba, every language has this as father. So, to me, it's pretty clear that all the languages of the world acknowledge subconsciously this relationship still holds true. This is the first thing you have to understand before you even delve into the mysterious letters, that there's a structure and an ordering of the letters themselves. They're not random. They're not borrowed from Aramaic or Hebrew or Persian. They're cosmic sounds. And you can bet that the creator of the universe named everything appropriately. For example, Nabi, Naba. That conveys a concept. The sounds, it could only be those sounds that convey that concept. Okay? Or the word for a war, harb. It can only be that sound in the creation that means war. This is the power of the Arabic language. And this is why a lot of the attention is put on other Semitic languages like Hebrew, and even Greek has some kind of a history apparently of being written right to left, not left to right. Aramaic and whatnot. So let's do a kind of activity here. What would happen if I made those 28 letters in 7 groups of 4. 7 is a number of order in the Quran. I mean, the heavens are organized into 7. Pretty much the most fantastic creation you can imagine. Allah has full credit for that, are organized into 7. 7 is a number of order. Allah says, "Are you a better creation or are the heavens?" Look towards the heavens. Allah made them. He constructed them. He raised it. So clearly, this is like really the most amazing part of the creation, the dunya, is the heavens. And since Allah tells us that He simply says things to come into being, and they do, kun fayakun. That's even 7 letters, that phrase, anyway. It's no surprise that the alphabet has exactly a number, a group divisible by 7. Yeah, solo music. I do have a kind of video on that. Funny enough, it's live stream 7. So check it out if you want. I think that will help you in your study. So what will happen if, let's say we start at the bottom of your throat. What's the first sound? Ha, ha, ha. It takes almost 0 effort to produce that sound. Ha. The next one, a little bit more effort. It's a stronger sound, right? Next one, ha, more effort. You see, it's going up the throat. Next one, ah, ah. So the idea is there are pairs of strong and weak letters, and they're attached to each other based on where they're produced. So those are the first 4, just by nature of our anatomy. And I'm going to show you guys here. Okay. So I didn't complete this, obviously. It was late last night. I just want to highlight something here. This is kind of a grading of 7 groups of 4 according to basically the order that they go in. And I'd like to show this visually, but I actually have it. I have it kind of in text form. Let me show you. Okay. So there's an order to the articulation, right? So you guys can see that on the screen. Let me know if you guys are still with me. This is kind of a dense topic for a lot of people. If you see this pairing here, this is all linguistic, right? Like this is officially how they determine how languages, how their communication, how they arise and everything, right? But it's specifically for Arabic. I spent a lot of time, process of elimination, where things fit. And this is what I have at the moment. Ha, ha, ain, ghin, kha, qaf, kaf, noon, ya, ra, la, ضاد, ta, da, ta. You go on and on. I probably sound ridiculous, but you go on, and you'll notice the sound move closer to the front of your mouth until you get to waw, fa, mim, ba. That's the last one. Yeah, thank you, brother. The reason why I want to explain it is so people don't get the impression I'm just making this up. I wouldn't present something that I didn't believe in. And I make my beliefs very public as well. I don't hide my beliefs or make them ambiguous. I want people to demonstrate this for themselves so that when they go back, they can see the process it took to get there. That's part of proof, right? Allah tells the messengers who say, produce your proof if what you say is truthful. So that's what I'm doing. I want to present the proof, and you can decide for yourself. This is not, a guru session where he's like a congregation or a sheep of the church where you just listen in and just yeah, whatever you say. This is meant to be interactive in a sense that we can get a better understanding of what we have in the form of this Quran. So as you can imagine, these words are paired. And you can, maybe I should move down a bit one sec here. That's all of them, okay? You can see that on the screen. 28 letters, 14 pairs, 7 groups of 4. So the groups of 4 would be exactly how I structure them there. First level, ha, ha, ain. These are like the loftiest letters. They have very little contact. It's all throat. It's all in your throat. Of course, they're going to have the less dense letters first, right? They get a bit more dense. It's like you're coming from the heavens down to earth, in a sense. Ghain, kha, qaf, kaf. You're starting to get a bit more surface on your oral cavity, right? But it's still pretty open. It's pretty airy. Next. Noon, ya, ra, la. Now you're starting to use the tongue. The tongue kind of dominates the central ones, right? Dad, ta. See how there's more force? So what I put there on the screen, the letters in bold are the stronger counterpart. Nu, yi. There's more force on the ya than nun. There's more force on the than ha, ha. And similarly throughout. Same with dal, ta. It makes sense. It's like a positive and a negative attraction. Pairs, right? This is the foundation to understanding why Allah uses those 14 muqatta'at in the Quran. What you see on the screen here. And this is something like I've really tried to streamline so it makes sense. For example, in the Arabic language, you'll see these all the time, like mention mama, baba, Mecca, Becca, gharib, kharib. You get the idea, right? And just one more thing before I move back to those mysterious letters. Kenan, salam, brate. Hope you're enjoying the stream. Salam, Zahid. Welcome. I just want to show you, this is obviously an unfinished document as well, okay? This is the prerequisite to showing the muqatta'at, okay? Let me just see here. Okay. So pattern number 1 is pretty cool, I think. Tell me what you guys think. Harab is a war, a conflict. You just reverse the letters. Barah, it means to leave, depart, go away from one's place, to pass. It refers to something violent, is severe, intense, or excruciating, like a war. Habar, that's in the Quran. That word is in the Quran. Rabbi, pope, ink, gladden, happy, bustard, to embellish, to compose. Ink, right? Like you're writing something down. You reverse it, rabah, to gain, to profit, to win. beneficiary, lucrative. So what I'm getting at is you take any root and you just reverse the letters. It gives you an attribute of its reflection. For example, bahar means sea or ocean. You reverse the letters, rahab, it means wideness, spaciousness, vastness, roominess, like the ocean. Again, stretches along the horizon, right? Is that a coincidence? No. That's why the Arabic language retains its embedded meaning. Doesn't matter what meanings they've put in there. All things considered, the Arabic language points you in the right direction. That's why the guidance, right? Allah says the Quran is al-huda, the guidance. He uses the Arabic language. So, Qur'anitics, yeah, you can find many videos that can practice to train those areas. I myself had struggled so much in the beginning with the pronunciation of Arabic. But basically, what it comes down to is kind of repetition, practice, and sometimes they'll give you like a kind of, cheat how to replicate the sound in English. So when you see it in Arabic, it becomes very much, you know, uh, it's easier for you to do. Like for instance, ain, that one is so hard for most people. And I remember when I was learning, they would say in like a forum, like just pretend you're like Arnold Schwarzenegger, like like how he talks, get to the chopper, right? Because it uses the back of the throat, that part, right, which is where ain is used. Another thing that helped me as well was, again, the positions of these letters. So, for example, heh, if you can pronounce heh, ain is just the same place, but it's a glottal stop. It's like not a glottal stop, but it's like a non-airy version of it, right? It's in the same position. So it just getting familiar with it, a bit of practice, um, and yeah, I think you know what actually helped the most is because during prayer you recite al-Fatiha. You know the beautiful thing about al-Fatiha is every single sound in the Arabic language is in that one chapter. Alif, Ba, Mim, Ta, Ra, Lam, all of them. Ain, Dha, Dha, Sin, Sad, they're all in there. So if you just recite Al-Fatiha enough times, you will develop a mastery of all those sounds. If you master all those sounds, you can read the Quran exactly like music to your ears. And it's not really about that, but it's just nice, it's nice to break that barrier that they created with the languages. They even call a language barrier, right? Yeah, absolutely, Miss Ali. Quran is Qur'an. Qur'an cannot be spelled except with qaf. Absolutely. All right. Yeah, exactly, Kenneth Blaine. I mentioned that earlier in the stream too. Had just turned into kha. It's like a laziness. And that's why Hebrew has 22 letters. Really. So Hebrew has 22 letters and it's supposed to have come before Arabic, which has 28. How did the information increase in Arabic? Omar Abu Zaid, Tajweed is something I have to really look at because those symbols in the Quran, they don't have the correct meaning of all those. They call them tilawat or tajweeds and markings. They're not all correct. And I showed in a live stream I did, I think last week, how some symbols they absolutely just completely lie to you about what they mean. So still looking at that, but it'd be interesting to figure out. Yeah, maybe there is some truth to tajweed, but is that the end all be all when it comes to the markings in the Quran? Yeah, absolutely. Sab'a min al-mathani, right? Even that isn't 7. And then the Quran comes with it, right? We have certainly given you in chapter 15, سبع من المثاني والقرآن العظيم. Um, yeah, I know, Miss Al, it gets a bit tedious. I know it is an obsessive thing, but do you know why? Because they have made Islam this completely symbolic religion. Completely. In Christianity and even Judaism, um, many many of the kind of more religions more compatible with modern times, they don't have a lot of this problem because they literally believe a lot of what they say, like sometimes they metaphorize obviously, but yeah, they literally believe it. They'll put diagrams of what New Jerusalem looks like with 12 gates and children of Israel and everything. But in Islam, like, you're given the revelation of the Quran, and they just like everything boils down to just this kind of repetitive, like, think about it. Clearly the concept of prayer is good, but it can be bad. You know why? Because if you're thankful to the wrong thing, if you ascribe something of God to something that's not, that's unforgivable upon death. And it's a greater danger, it's a greater responsibility being aware of the Quran and doing that kind of shirk prayer, right? That being said, clearly, there's just so many things that the traditional perspective cannot answer, and from there, this is why Allah makes it, you know, He makes it a point for you individually, as well as the Prophet Muhammad, right? Because he's obviously the first person to kind of get this revelation firsthand. But then later it's to humanity, to jinns, and you have the responsibility to do your due diligence, right? And not just blindly obey. All right, so okay, let's kind of try to stay on track as much as we can. Yeah, let me just see if I can switch the. Just bear with me, guys. All right. Let's look at this. So you guys can see this on the screen. These are just my personal notes, and it's a bit messy and all over the place. But I just took all of the mutaqata'at. There's only one I didn't account for because I made the mistake of going on an online list and not actually doing my own work. So keep that in mind. If you ever want to study anything from the Quran, do the work yourself, because people make mistakes. We're all human, right? The only mistake I can recall is basically chapter 68 called Al-Qalam. That one starts with Noon, so that would be the letter that's missing. other than that, let's look at some of these ayahs where it appears. You guys can see that, right? You guys can see the screen? Okay. Alif Lam Mim. Just look at the numbers they're in, right? Chapter 2, 3, 29, 30, 31, 32. These are consecutive, okay? Al-Ankabut, Al-Ankabut, Ar-Rum, Luqman, As-Sajda. So, why? Why would Allah put Alif Lam Mim in chapters 2 and 3, then jump and put 4 consecutive chapters? 29, 30, 31, 32. Let me show you another example. Ha Mim. Chapter 40, 41, 42, 43, 44, 45, 46. Exactly 7 times you have Ha Mim. All right? They're all consecutive chapters. Alif Lam Ra. That's another code, right? Number 10, number 12. So number 10, number 11, number 12 skips 13, 14, 15. You see what happened? So then you have Alif Lam Mim, and then there's another letter built on Alif Lam Mim. Let me show you. There's an arrow here. So one is Alif Lam Mim Ra, Alif Lam Mim Sad. Alif Lam Mim Sad number 7, Alif Lam Mim Ra number 13. This is just an analysis of the chapters they're in, the number on the chapter. So this is the number that was missing, 13, in this one, Alif Lam Ra. And the only difference is a meme is in there. Alif Lam Mim Ra. Interesting. You guys can look at this for yourself and yeah, make your own connections. Like for example, this one. Alhamdulillah. That word is used 4 times to start a chapter. Chapter 6, 34, 18, 35. So look again, you have consecutive numbers here, 34 and 35. Oaths. The concept of oaths is a bit dodgy for me, but nevertheless, that's what they're called when Allah says, wa shams wa duha, right? Like he'll start the surah with wa, and then he'll make an oath on something. Wa shafaq, wal fajr, okay? These are the chapters those are in, apparently. 51, 52, 53, consecutive numbers, right? 91, 92, 93, even you have 86, 85. What else is there? Look at this one. Ta Sin. Okay, Ta Sin is number 27. Ta Sin Mim, just another letter added to that, is 26 and 28. Is that amazing? Ta Sin Mim, 26. Ta Sin, 27. Ta Sin Mim, 28. It's just not a coincidence. There's a pattern. And if you pay attention, over time, it will make sense. I mentioned before how Sad and Qaf are related because they're the only chapters named after a single letter. And Yasin and Taha are connected because they're the only chapters named after 2 letters. That's it. So you're meant to find that correlation, right? So the only times you have 2 letters are Yasin, Taha, Tasin, Hamim. Hamim 7 times. Tasin 2 times. Taha once, Yasin once. And, you know, just the only one I didn't add in here is Noon because I forgot. But Noon is another one in there. That's another one that's 1 letter long. However, that is not the name of a surah. But it's there regardless. And so when I go back and redo this, I'm going to add noon in there. Okay. What do you guys think about that? Does that make sense? There is an order to it. It's not just mindless gobbledygook. Allah made sure to put them in just the right places so mankind can reflect. Those are just preliminary associations that you can't ignore because, um, you know, it's plain as day. Yeah, I have to do a bit more into this scrutiny and I mean Hamim is just one of the more obvious ones, right? Like all 7 of those are back to back. 40, 41, 42, 43, 44, 45, 46. Even in the Wikipedia page I showed you, they admit that, right? All right. Are you guys still with me? Let me just get this on track here. Okay. Clearly, there's a lot of data to analyze. But just from the beginning, there's an intelligence behind this. No doubt. And Muslims clearly do believe that. But then when you see it, what they claim about what they possibly could mean, it's kind of laughable. So, Abdullah ibn Abbas, Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, Abu Hayyan al-Gharnati, they say that these letters stand for words or phrases related to God and his attributes. I'm sorry, where's the proof of that? I would love to believe that. That does sound good on the surface. But not everything that sounds good is good or true. Okay. Let's go back. Fakhruddin al-Razi, a classical commentator of the Quran, has noted some 20 opinions regarding these letters and mentions multiple opinions. These letters represent the names of the surahs as appointed by God. So, for example, he mentions that Arabs would name things after such letters: Ain, Ghain, clouds, Noon, whale. I mean, I would love to believe that, but there's more to the story, right? Hamid ad-Din Farahi similarly attaches symbolic meanings to the letters, for example, Noon symbolizing fish, identifying the surah dedicated to Jonah, or Ta representing serpent, introducing surahs that mention the story of Prophet Moses and serpents. Where did they get Ta representing serpent? It's not even in the word for serpent. Noon is not even in the word for whale. Where do they get this up? Is it just... It's almost like the people that write the explanations we're supposed to figure out ourselves, okay, have a different religion. It doesn't require them to show you their proof. So, for example, when they tell you Noon means whale or fish, can I please see where you got to that? Can I see, the proof in the equation? How did you get there? Oh, that's just tradition. We just preserved it. Yeah, but it should be self-evident. What you're going to notice is the kind of conspiracy around the Quran, the ma'shar al-jinn wal insi, they have knowledge that you're not privy to. And so when they make these claims, they don't have to tell you. And in many ways, they're not allowed to, because knowledge truly is from Allah alone. We can agree, right? Knowledge Allah is the one who gives knowledge. He's the one of complete and total knowledge. He has knowledge of all things. He guides whom He wills. He teaches mankind. Allah is the one who actually teaches mankind. So the dark side, and there is a dark side, clearly. Look at the world around you. What they do is, because they're outside of the natural order, they have to stratify everything. So the people on the top of the secret society can never let the people on the bottom know that they're just useful pawns. And clearly we are kind of really on the bottom of that initiated hierarchy. So that's why they never explain why. They just say, oh, well, to learn more, you have to join this group and then work your way up. And the more you work your way up in all these sects, the sects of Islam, the sects of Christianity, they operate the same way as secret societies. There's people that are more privy to certain information that's literally withheld from the masses. So they do something out of ignorance because no one informs them. While the people that are in charge, they know what they're doing is stupid. Imagine. So that's why it's up to us. It's up to every man, woman, and child who has the capability within their own capacity. Allah does not charge a soul except within its capacity to reflect and figure out things via these signs of Allah, the signs of the Creator. Thank you so much, Brother Howard George Stirrup. I'm glad you tuned into the stream. Indeed, may the Creator guide us on our quest. Ameen. So, you can see there's no rationale for why Taha means serpent. Sometimes they'll tell you Taha means the Prophet Muhammad. That's one of his names. Says who? We don't see this as a name. We see Ahmed, we see Muhammad. Taha is not even a word. How can it even be a name? That's what falsehood is recognized as. Falsehood is conjecture, assumptions. Saying about God what you do not know for sure. And that's something all of us, I would imagine, should really strive to avoid doing. It's easy to do. It's easy to say this is haram, this is halal. Wait a second. Hold the phone. Go to the Quran and prove what's haram and halal. 100% black and white. No. Don't assume. You notice I don't go into the legislation, the laws of Islam, because that's a gray area for me at the moment. My research interest is focused on the things that are just unequivocal, ubiquitous. I want to figure out, what am I living in? What should I expect in the future without speculating? Because speculation is what you get in all the rabbit holes and all the conspiracy movements. All speculation. Why? Because there's no standard. We have a standard. It's called the Quran. But what has been attached to the Quran makes it obscured and makes it insignificant, minuscule. The only value is to just recite ayahs for prayer. That's basically what the Quran has been reduced to in our time, sadly. Let's look further here. Ahsan ar-Rahman claims that there are phonological, syntactic, and semantic links between the prefix letters and the text of the chapters. I don't see what the conclusion of that would imply. What's the significance of that? Oh, it's just all about grammar. It's just the way Arabs talk, yeah. Theodor Nöldeke advanced the theory that the letters were marks of possession belonging to the owners of Quranic copies used in the first collection by Zayd ibn Thabit. Tell me, guys, you don't believe this, right? These people are trying to claim the Quran for their stupid Kabbalah. It even says right there, these Orientalists, they're all from the 1800s, 1900s, surprisingly. Noldek had later revised his theory, responding to Otto Loth's suggestion that the letters had a distinction connection with the mystic figures and symbols of the Jewish Kabbalah. The Kabbalah! Everything's Kabbalah! Why does this stupid word keep coming up all the time? The reason is because this is your enemy. All of the principles of Kabbalah are opposite to the Quran. In fact, the Quran makes it very clear there's a Qibla, the Qibla, and then there's Qibla that are other ones. That's where the word comes from. Qabbala. It's a qaf. There's no denying that. So you can see that when there's no rational explanation, they invoke Kabbalah, mysticism, assumption, falsehood, arbitrary speculation in the hands of humans. And there's nothing to do with the Quranic idea of that whatsoever. The Quran is a clear, concise speech, definitive, provable. Allah tests you. He says, okay, produce something like this. Find the contradictions. Explain whatever you can. Try to make an argument against this Quran. There's no book in history like that. Every single book in literature has criticism. The Quran, though, there is no valid criticism of the Quran whatsoever. It's just the ignorance problem. Either ignorance or arrogance. So what I mean by that is people that have never read the thing reject it. Arrogance. People that have read the Quran, they just never look deep enough. They assume things and then reject it out of ignorance. SubhanAllah. So this is the problem, right? Why are these people giving us these particular ideas surrounding these letters? Because they know people, they just get spoon-fed whatever they're taught. They don't look at things for themselves. They don't check. And so they plant these seeds. Hey, maybe this has something to do with Jewish Kabbalah. Jewish Kabbalah. They want to control the narrative. And that's going to bring me to... let me just see here. There are remnants of abbreviations for Bismillah. Nope. Just read every single one of these. Gematria. Rashad Khalifa, another, like, this guy, he's a cult leader. The number 19, all this stuff, it's all related. Shias have their own version of this, numerical, mystical things. I'm going to do a stream on the whole numbers aspect. I think you guys might really like that. There's nothing mystical about numbers. There's nothing like woo about it. It's very, very rational. It's actually, it's part of nature. There's nothing satanic, and there's nothing coveted and like only a certain population of people know the ins and outs of the knowledge, the elites. No, it's not like that at all. So I'll do that one day, inshallah, so you guys can have a better idea why you see certain things in the Quran and you kind of scratch your head like, why is it? Why is this word spelled this way in the Quran? Sufis are probably the worst aspect of this. Many Sufis accept Kabbalah and the Zohar, strangely. I mean, these texts describe horrendous things about exalted characters in the Quran like Maryam and Isa. The Baha'i faith, all of these things are created for you. Miss Ali, don't get me wrong, when I say mystical, idea means like we don't understand, it has like a mystery to it. It's not a mystery. It's a function of nature. Okay? And just because things have a deeper meaning, esoteric meaning, that doesn't mean they're inaccessible for anyone to examine or figure out. I probably should reiterate. And you're right, 9 is, like I mentioned for the number 7, right? 9, the way it's used in the Quran, is very profound, no doubt. But what people do is they ascribe their own meanings. That's what I'm trying to kind of get around that. Okay. All right. We looked at that. Let me just go back here. Okay. Can you guys see my screen? This looks a bit. What is this? What do you have for us today? Well, I just, out of curiosity, I took those 14 letters that are mentioned in these muttaqata'at and I plotted them. And what you're looking at on the screen here is the result of what I think is going on. There is an order taking place that fits with why those particular letters are used. Let me go through them. Alif, Ha, Ha, Qaf, Sin, Ra, Nun, Ya, Lam, Sad, Kaf, Ain, Ta, Mim. What I realized is just by process of elimination, I didn't impart any of my own biases. I just looked at, based on what I was looking at with these pairs, that every letter is paired fundamentally to another in sound creation. There's only 2 letters that are not paired, and that's tha and mim. So this letter goes with ha. It's produced in the same space. This letter ain goes with ha, produced same space. Qaf goes with kaf. Sin goes with sad. Ra goes with lam. Nun goes with ya. You see that, right? The inner circle, it's there. There's only 2 unaccounted for, and that's the middle one. So in mathematics, when you want to represent a number in a diagram, you take 1 and put the rest of the numbers to make up that number around it. So like if you have 7, you put 1 in the center and 6 around it. 5, 1 in the center, 4 around it. Ta and mim are not pairs, yet they're in this 14. This 14 letters of muqatta'at, right? So what I realized is these 2 letters point to something of the other 14. So if I make a circle, right? Let me see if I can make something here. It's a bit glitchy. That's the outer circle. And I'm just gonna okay. The letters at the outer circle are not included in muqatta'at. That's the remainder of the 28. And the reason I linked them is because, you know, they're paired with ba and dad. Let me show you. You guys remember this? When I go down here, this is something you're just always gonna be faced with. This pattern. Ta, dad, ba, mim. So what this diagram represents is strong and weak letters. Like when I bolded half of them in ta, let's say red represents, oops. I'll just use this as an example. Okay. Red represents the stronger of the pair, like a positive negative thing. Da represents the weaker one. Da, ta, da. It takes less effort to hear da. You can barely hear it. Ta. Meme, it's almost like so easy to pronounce the meme. It's probably the easiest to pronounce word ever. A little sound. Ba takes more effort though. And you just do that for all of them. You're going to realize, let me just do for this one here. So ha, right? Of the two, takes more energy. Okay. You just work your way around this. And you'd imagine, okay, what about the other ones? How did you come to that realization? So what you're going to see here is, let me see if I can insert something here. Each of these rows, I probably should have completed, but each of these rows is like a value. So all of these sounds, these are like row 1 letters of the way it's produced, like vocally, right? So all of these letters are row 1. And this is so interesting to me. They're all here. Let me show you. They're all in the first circle. Okay. Let's see if I can. Yeah, I just want to make transparent. There we go. Okay. Everything in the rectangle are the kind of letters that are all part of the first set of 7. And I can make the same rectangle around this. These are in row 3. Ra, Nun, Ya, Lam. Now you're asking, why did I put these letters with the meme? Why did I put these letters with the ta? What you're going to find is this particular thing. These ones are all weak. Bear with me here. Basically, all of these are blue. All of these are red. So again, red representing the strong of the pair, blue the weaker one. That's because this one technical difficulties. I think in my original video I called them passive and active. Okay. And the other one, strong. Okay. Yeah, Omar, it's not intuitive because it's about the position of the sound itself. Qa, qa, qa. When you pronounce qaf, it's like barely there. Compared to ka, you will always hear like ذلك, ركع, ركعت. Okay? There's more stress on that. Bakka. If it was bakka, bakka, baqara, there's more energy produced from the kaf. And what you're going to find is too, like, a lot of things with this qaf idea is centered around the surroundings, the container. Remember in Mecca part 3, they actually call qaf the stretch of mountains that surrounds the world, the edges. Chapter 46 is called ahqaf, and that means the backside, the kind of rear, the hindquarters, the rear of everything. Again, has qaf in there. Kaf, though, like Mecca, Makan, Merkez, is about centrality, the thing occupying the space. Okay. So, yeah, I just wanted to introduce this idea because obviously I can talk for hours about every individual letter if I wanted to. But what you're left with is essentially an order to the Quran that you somehow accidentally find just by studying things critically. You understand? I didn't invoke any hadith. I didn't invoke the Bible. Okay? Just looking at things from a analytical perspective. And it's just interesting how, like, the symmetry of the Quran is not to be understated. So, for example, look at how this worked out. Qaf and Slad are right directly across from each other. That's why you have words like Aqsa, Quswa, Sadiq. Okay? Here you have Sin and Kaf. Of course, everything mirrors in the Quran. Like, for instance, the word Sakina, Miskin, Sakana, Sukkaran, Kesra. Do you notice how the words themselves in Arabic prove this point? Because they like to be each other in the vocabulary. Kesra, as opposed to quswa, sadaqa. Okay. For example, I didn't go through the outer circle, but that's based on the 7 division, the 7 groupings of these letters into 4, exactly 4 each of them. Maybe I should number them, I guess. Maybe I'll put an image or something on the channel so you guys can examine it for yourself. For instance, like Noon and Zain are together in a sense. Zayyina, Zina, Nazla, Zina, Zani, Zaytun. They go together all the time. It just so happened to fit. What's another one? Ha and Jim. Hajj. It's not intuitive because I had to look through every single one to make sure that it works. Okay. Hajj. Jah, Jarah. Okay. They go together. Qaf. Literally, the letter is called Qaf. It's connected to Fa. Qaf. To waqaf is to pause, to stop. It's the end of something. You reach the end. Qa and Mim. Maqam. A whole word based on qa and mim. Qawm, maqam, aqimu. Then you go to Sad. Sad is actually spelled Sad with a dal. Sadaqa. Sadaqa. Sadiq. What's another version of that? Sidr. Yes, you can have Sadr as well. Sidra. I think, no, is it Dad? I'm not sure. But clearly there's something going on. Like for example, lam gha, ghil. You find so many roots in the Quran start with ghil. Lugha. I just showed you the whole list of lugha. Khar. Kharri. One word used in the Quran is for rakhiyun. Those are the people that Allah tells you know these mutashabihat verses. None knows them except Allah wa rakhiyun. Okay. Sin ta. Tisa. Sitta. Those are just 2 numbers, 9 and 8. No, 9 and 6. Sitta. Tis'a. Taslim. You go on further. Alif and Tha. Athar. Turath. Like follow them on their traces. Atharihim. Thabit. Something firm. Ain and Sheen. Aish. Ashra. Ma'ashar. Sharia. Sha'r. Shu'ra. So many examples of Ain and Sha. Kaf and Waw. Kaun. Kunu. Yakunu. Kanu. Wakil. You know, I'm just showing you how this works, right? You can show for yourself. Val and Ha. Dhahaba, to go. Dhahab, gold. Hadha, hadhihi. How many times have you seen the Quran hadha? That just fit into place. If there's any wrongs, that's from me. That's not from Allah, and may Allah guide us all. But I'm just saying, like, where is the inquiry from the people that have been that have inherited the Quran? That's another one. Warith, athar, turath. traditions. So yeah, I think the muqatta'at, again, you can see how like basically is giving you a map of the relationships between these letters employed by the Quran. It's not complete, but you can clearly see that there's something going on. There's a symmetry, mirroring, pairing of sound. If you have the map, the matrix of how sounds are related to each other in Arabic, you have a way, a blueprint for understanding why words are defined as such. So, for example, in my Mecca series, it says mihrab. Does that mean prayer chamber? Because it's the same root as harb. Clearly, there's a different definition, right? So when you look at you know, even like right down to the shapes of the letters is kind of interesting too. Like ain, ghain, they have a similar, basically the same shape with a dot, and you just look at what it implies, right? Gharab, west. Arab, Arabs. Um, let me show you something else, guys. One second. Um, so yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed that. By the way, I just want to kind of propose a new kind of mode of thinking. That doesn't it's not attached to any belief system. It's not attached to any preconceived notions or presupposition. It's just following patterns of what we're given from the Quran. Okay. So, like I said, inner circle around thought, inner circle plus thought and meme, those are your muqatta'at. Interesting, they're called muqatta'at because it's almost like they cut apart the words. There's like a slice in the middle, and these letters are like the doorways to the whole alphabet. Isn't that cool? So, when I go to words in the Quran, right? Um, it's all over the place. You guys know the Islamic calendar? In fact, I'm glad that somebody brought it up in the chat that tomorrow is, or today or tomorrow is the New Year, Islamic New Year. When I was younger, that date for the New Year was a totally different part of the year. But over time, because it's only following the moon, it changes. It goes 10 days behind. So clearly that calendar doesn't work because it's not consistent. Let me explain why. Oh, thank you so much, Kenneth Blaine. Exactly. So waqt, that's the word for time in Arabic uses the word the letter qaf. It has to. It's related to divisions of time. Makan uses the word kaf, the letter kaf. Yeah. The pairs are endless in the Quran, in Arabic, in the Revelation itself. So you guys know the Islamic calendar, right? In 2030, there's going to be 2 Ramadans. All right. So if you ever talk to somebody who's a Sunni Muslim, Shia Muslim, right? And this hasn't happened the first time, right? It's not the first time this has happened, right? Oh, what's this? Oh, I don't know what that is. Um, Yep, there will be 2 Ramadans in 1 year. And guess what? This lunar calendar repeats this pattern every 33 years. You can see it on the screen. I don't have a problem with numbers. I have a problem with something that doesn't work in reality. That's it. Don't blame the numbers 33 or 19 or 7 or 9 or 22 or 666. And they're just numbers at the end of the day. People ascribe the meanings they want to them. Like the Christians, like the Jewish Kabbalah, even the Sufi, all the Muslims, everyone puts meanings on their number that just are completely arbitrary. What I have a problem with is 1 year, okay, 2024, or no, sorry, 2032, 2030, whatever, having 2 months of the same in there. And that this doesn't happen every year, it's flips. That doesn't work. You have 1 year, each month represented once. Anyway, the reason I introduced this idea because I want to show you the names of the Islamic calendar are in the Quran. That's not what I'm saying, Miss Ali. I'm not saying the numbers are not important. I'm saying that people look at them as satanic. People ascribe Freemasonic associations to them because of what these people are doing behind the scenes. I can appreciate the value of numbers. But, you know, let's not, create religions around numbers. You know what I mean? Yeah, thank you so much, Kenneth Blaine. Aleph is something absolute, evident, Ha is emptiness. The reason you come to that explanation is not from speculation, it's from how the letters are used in Arabic vocabulary. It brings the insight for you, okay? Let's see here. So, in the Quran, Allah says to use the sun and the moon for reckoning. That has to do with accounting, time, and obviously space as well, because time and space are interwoven. You can't be in a space without time, and vice versa. Okay. Yeah, Misali, I agree with you. Like, it's the same way that letters are used, sound is used. We undeny. There's no way of denying it. We do live in this type of creation that's all calculated for us by the Creator. All I'm saying is that it's like people get triggered by certain numbers and certain things because of how men have ascribed false meanings to them. Just the religions of the world show you that to be the case. Yeah. So if you look at most of the calendars today in the history, yeah, Govan, that's exactly what I'm saying. They follow a lunar and a solar account of time. They use both. That way, the months stay relatively in the seasons they're supposed to be in. Okay. In Islam, though, they're not allowed to do that. The scholars have concluded the moon is what's for the keeping of time. So that's why the Arabic word for spring, Rabi', ends up in winter. The Arabic word for all of the months doesn't work within the seasons they're meant to be in. Okay. So this is what I'm trying to highlight, is that there's something left behind for us to analyze as signs with this calendar. Allah says there's 12, and that's exactly what we have, but they're only tied to the moon. And what's interesting is if you compare the names of these Islamic months, right? Look at where they correspond to. Okay, so Rabi' al-Awwal, the spring of the first, right? Allah is called Al-Awwal, so this belongs to Him. It corresponds with March, and I didn't pull this out. This is what you get from the standard explanation. Okay. If you go to Rabi' al-Akhir, so do you see the pairing even in the calendar? Awwal wal-Akhir, the first and the last. Jumad al-Ula, Jumad al-Akhirah. By the way, this root is mentioned in the Quran in one verse. This root is mentioned throughout the Quran, many verses. Raba'. Rajab. This root is not mentioned in the Quran, but what's interesting is if you look at substitutions, inversions of the root using letters, you have a model for deriving what it means. Apparently, what it means is respect or being awe of. And that's not good enough for me. So I try to look at how the Arabic language uses different. And this is where I came to that pattern where flipping of roots rather gives you attributes of the concept. Like Bahr is a sea, and Rahab is vastness. Okay. So yeah, again, unfinished, all kinds of things on the back burner at the moment. But I'm just sharing this with you so you have some keys to investigate. Okay. Rajaba. Rabaja, couldn't find anything. Baraja, used in the Quran all the time. The constellations, the citadels, the towers. By the way, if you think Buruj are constellations, fair enough. The same word is used for towers, citadels. Okay. Rajam. So look at this. Rajam is stoning, expelling, pelting, missile, projectiles, shooting. Majar, maraj, ramaj. I'm just taking their definitions. I'm not saying this is what it actually means, but this is kind of like, okay, give them the benefit of the doubt that they know the Arabic better than us. The language itself will point you in the right direction eventually when you figure out how it works. And that's when all those lousy excuses for definitions of Arabic words, they fall short. And you'll instantly identify them when you get really good at analyzing where they twist things. You see, we don't follow the dictionaries like we don't follow dictionaries exclusively because they are set up to give you a wrong impression, and they have mutually exclusive definitions for the same word. Qur'ani Share Islam, I mentioned in the start of this stream some of the tips and tricks to help you get to the meaning of a word in Arabic used in the Quran. I would watch that from the beginning. And I should preface by saying that this is still evolving as time goes on and things become more crystallized with more investigating into the Quran and a deeper understanding of what every word means. What I did mention is that, every single word in the Quran has to have the same meaning across the Quran. For example, the word for Jabbar, it can't be a tyrant. You know why? Because Allah describes that for Himself, Al-Jabbar. So that's the thing. So yeah, I'll have to make a live stream at some point, maybe summarizing some key principles before you even attempt to go in there, blindly and say, "Oh, well, I don't know, I'm just confused. I don't know how to interpret what's right, what's not." That would be an interesting video, definitely. So we can do it kind of interactively, and you guys can let me know what makes sense. Okay. So after Rajab, they tell us is Sha'ban. This root is used all the time in the Quran. Sha'ban. It's used for the Prophet Shu'aib. It's used for the races of mankind, like Shu'ub, we made you races and tribes so you can come to know each other. Shu'ub wa qaba'il. And then it's also used for, I guess, columns of smoke 3. I don't know what to make of that, but it's something from the hellfire. It's called Shu'ub, Shu'abin, or whatever it is. The key matter is, if you just look at what they tell you it means, okay? Let me just go to that quickly. Sha'ban. This is the month that precedes Ramadan, okay? So they tell you it means the month of separation, to disperse or to separate, because apparently the pagan Arabs used to search for water. That's an assumption. We don't know what the history is, but we do know that's what the word is related to in Arabic. Sha'aba, a scattering or dispersal. Isn't it interesting? The word for people, like a group of people or a race or a tribe or something like that, is related to this sha'ab. In Arabic, when you say this people are like this, has sha'ab. What if the community all mankind comes from became its respective shu'ub as it dispersed through the earth? Allah says we dispersed Bani Adam. We have created you in shu'ub and qaba'il so you may come to know each other. There is some kind of a spreading, a divergence of humanity. And this is what the month is related to, literally. Our diversity as a human species is related to spreading out across the lands and time periods and everything. So yeah, it's not just about camels looking for water. It's the people themselves. That word is used for races or peoples or nationalism or many different derivations from that root. When you go back, then you go to Ramadan. And isn't it interesting too that Sha'ban in Hebrew and the old Arabic calendar is called Ab. Even has the kind of remnant of that in there. Avgust, Abu, Av, Sha'ab. Even the Latin calendar that we use, the kind of, I think it's like Gregorian calendar or whatever, the Roman months, January, February, and so forth, they reflect a lot of this. And so when you get to Ramadan, okay, you see that this root is used as well as Ra Mim Dal. I call them a cousin root because Dal and Dal, they're related. So you notice how it says September there? I didn't even hope to find that, but let me show you guys what I mean. The old accounting of time had a consistent calendar. The seasons and the months always followed 12 a year with the sun and the moon. If you put in the word Ramadan, okay, that word is in the Quran verbatim as a shahr. If you want to debate what shahr means, does it mean month or whatever? Okay, fine. Just going with the standard narrative, okay? They say it's a summer month. All right, you guys can see that? They say it's a summer month. You scroll down a bit. September. It's right there as September. Question. There's exactly 4 months, shuhur, in the Quran that are hurumun, like sacred. Let's just use their explanation to highlight the principle, okay? 4 sacred months. So the standard narrative in Islam is there are 4 months no killing is allowed. They're sacred. And then when the 4 months have passed, then it's okay to defend yourself, apparently. So the people from the history we're given are waiting 4 months. They tell us in hadith that the identity of the 4 months is Dhul Qa'dah, Dhul Hijjah, Muharram, and Rajab. There's only one problem though. Rajab is not consecutive with the other 3. There's like half the year in between them. So how would that make sense if you tell someone to wait 4 months? They're going to wait 4 consecutive months, right? It just makes sense. So why did they put Rajab there when the other 3 are consecutive? It's like the odd one out. Well, clearly, I mean, Ramadan is a sacred month, right? Then you have, I think it was, sometimes they'll put Shawwal, Dhul Qa'dah, Dhul Hijjah. So there's like there's a contradiction of what the truth is in the hadith, right? So one thing I want to highlight though is it's called September. The next month, October. Next month, November. Next month, December. The reason they named them that and those 4 months are just completely different than the other months, January, February, March, April, May, June, August, July, is because they're named after numbers. Sept is 7, Oct is 8, Nov is 9, Deca is 10. Why are they the 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th months? They're named after the 7th, 8th, 9th, and 10th order. Something happened, there was a shift, and that's why September has to be the 7th month. What really rectifies it is the fact that the year does not start in January. Quite literally, many cultures, the oldest calendars apparently we have, they always started on the spring equinox. So by the time it comes to the autumn equinox in September, it's the 7th month. Hence September. Could it be those are the months that are the sacred ones? Pilgrimage months, right? That's why when you they say you make a pilgrimage or Hajj in Islam. If you're fasting like you would for Ramadan, then there's different conditions. Whoever's on a journey, right, doesn't need to fast. It would alleviate so much of the tension if Muslims had a broader set of months to do Hajj in, so they don't congest the place in 6 days. And I'm not the first to bring that forward, clearly. I mean, this is very obvious to show. If you believe Hajj is a pilgrimage, Allah says Hajj is months, verbatim. Okay? So what I want to show you as well, in case you think this is a bit of reaching, this word, taqweem. So this chapter of the fig, at-tin, let me just open it up. والتين والزيتون والطور السينين وهذا البلد الآمين هذا البلد الآمين لقد خلقنا الإنسان في أحسن تقويم. Look, this word is described as mold. Okay, the connotation Oh, you guys don't see it. 1 second. The connotation I always got from this is that Adam, mankind, was made in a form, like a mold. And that made sense to me because there is a form to the human body and everything else. What if I told you that doesn't mean mold? And they just inserted that there because they can't explain what it actually means. Let me find it here. I know I should have had all this stuff prepared, but we're all human at the end of the day. This is what it means. Can you guys see that on the screen? The word for calendar that's used today to mean calendar is in the Quran. So when you say the Hijri calendar, in Arabic it's called Taqweem Hijri. That doesn't mean the Hijri mold, the Hijri shape. It's literally a calendar. And because the Quran does not endorse a heliocentric model, it does make sense because the calendar goes around us in the form of these 12 constellations, and the sun and the moon even go around us. We are in the calendar. The calendar belongs to Allah. It's objective. And all the various different variations of it are just, exacerbations of one central universal truth. One religion, one method of timekeeping, one creator, one message, one final prophet. Does that make sense? Yeah, I believe in that. However, lunar cycle is 28 days. And there's a really great video I just want to show you, just because they explain it better than I do. This whole concept of nasib. Let me just find it 1 second. No, I can't find it. 1 sec here. Oh, there it is. I found it. All right. So this idea okay. This idea of intercalary days, years, right? There's clearly more to the story. Allah even mentions 10 nights. That's the difference between the lunar and solar calendar. وَلَيَالِ الْعَشْرِ. So, what I think is going on, okay, well, there's no calendar in Islam. Quranish Islam, what does the word taqweem mean? It's right there on the screen. That's in the Quran once. SA, you can have 12 months in a luni-solar calendar. Just, look at that channel, Simply Muslim. They talk about the concept from the Quran itself. And it fits. It fits very well. It's not just a solar calendar. The moon also keeps track of time. Welcome, Brother Imran, to the stream. Salam alaikum. Does the human body have a design to it? What are your thoughts on golden ratio, Brother Igor? Absolutely. The designer clearly imbued an order to everything. Maybe we can, yeah, discuss this, at some point later on. It's a big topic, but yeah, I mean, independent of the Quran, people have found that out. People that don't believe in God found that there's an order to the cosmos and everything in it. So, yeah, definitely. What I'm trying to put here as the best of molds, أحسن تقويم, is this peculiarity of taqweem being the word for the Hijri calendar. Maybe our bodies function in a similar way to calculate time in a way. I'm not sure. They call it the biological clock, right? Circadian rhythms and all that. We are tied to the calendar around us that we're in. If you imagine the stars and the celestial object, they go around you. So there is no loss of tracking time in the creation. It's consistent. There is no hastening of it. There is no delaying of it. This is what Allah's words tell you. So, yeah, think about this. Even the word for almanac, that's Arabic. Almanac. So much of our culture takes from the Arabic vocabulary. So they tell you, not me, that Ramadan is tied to September, that the Hijri calendar is tied to that word taqweem. Yeah, Govand, it's on the screen. Every month in the Islamic calendar is meant to have a specific purpose unique to itself, just like everything else in the dunya. It doesn't change positions. It doesn't have this ambiguous. It was always there. The autumn equinox. And there's a great channel, Hussein al Khalil. You can search it up for yourself. Has a masterful grasp of all the arguments for a period of fasting a month around when the time is equal around the world. Equinox. So it's interesting that in Maltese, it means Lent when they fast for a month in Christianity. And that channel, I can't stress enough, if you want to understand how the calendar in the Quran works, you should check out those videos. So it's like you don't really have that much. Like you don't have to throw everything away all the time. You just have to reconcile what you're given with the reality the Quran is telling you. That's it. The signs are around us. So how do we use the Quran as a criterion? It's making those connections. As-salihati. Amilu as-salihati. So there's work involved and there's reconciliation. Salah. Salah. One thing I want to talk about, Hijri, right? So our calendar in the Islamic faith is called Hijri. Do you know what that word means? Hijri. Let me find it for you. Remember I told you the word for dispersal, sha'aba, has the word for peoples, different ethnicities and races of people, of humanity. Keep that in mind when you think about the word for hijr, hijri, mahjura. Allah says, Allah says, the Prophet Muhammad verbatim says, indeed my people have taken this, the Quran, mahjuran, abandoned. When you get expelled from a place, you abandon it. And when you look at this word for hijr, the Hijri calendar, to speak nonsense, to dream, talk foolishly. Number one, to emigrate, dissociate. There's people in the Quran called muhajirin. They leave behind and relinquish their wealth and their properties. To abandon, to surrender, to leave behind, to leave, give up, desolate, abandoned, forsaken. A dead language is called the lugha mahjura. Antiquated, archaic, separation. You guys see that, right? Let me ask you, why is the calendar of Islam called Hijri? Oh, because the Prophet Muhammad made a hijrah from Mecca to Medina. That's the excuse we're told. There is no Mecca and Medini surahs. It's not in the Mus'haf. If it was, right next to every surah chapter, the title, you'd see Mecca, Medini. That's interpolated. There's no proof there are Mecca and Medina surahs. I know the Quran was revealed in a certain way, but there's no evidence. This was from Mecca, this was from Medina. So what is the hijrah then? Why do we have this word? This word is used in the Quran. Like I mentioned, mahjura, something abandoned. Muhajirin, those who relinquish what they have for the path of Allah. What if humanity was expelled from its home? And you probably watch my videos, you have some idea of what that implies. But clearly, there is something abandoned of great value, and we find ourselves living here with the remnants of what we had before. You're right, Birdsong, we did make hijrah away from the Quran. But it's also related to being expatriated. You know, like when you have somebody lives outside of their home country. You know what that's called? Let me find it for you. Expat. It's called expat. And what's interesting is this is the word used for Hajar, the alleged wife of Ibrahim. And it's the word used for Arab diaspora. So speakers of the Arabic language that live outside of their homeland, abroad. You guys see that? The Hijri calendar exists because humanity is not home. And so that's why Allah says we made you in the best taqweem. Because the homeland, the calendar goes literally around you. You see the whole thing. Adam was made in that. That's why they put as mold when everybody understands this to be a calendar in Islam. Why would we use something else for that word when the concept makes sense? We are basically a settlement of humanity in this lands we inhabit on this map. We have no idea what's out there because we're not allowed to travel. You know, some people say like, well, why don't you go there yourself? Why don't you go and make the journey? You can't. It's dangerous, and they won't let you. People have tried. So what if we became these peoples and cultures and races and ethnicities and diverse peoples over time through scattering, like Beni Israel? Even in the Bible, it's like this idea of lost sheep of the house of Israel. We made hijrah from the Quran. Of course, that's very obvious to see. Humanity has abandoned that. But it's also abandoned all the knowledge of what the Quran says. So, you know, what is the big picture? In the Quran alone, Quran-based community, it's always like going to be a battle of, oh, this is a shahr means moon. Qamar means moon. Qamar is the moon. That's a moon. Um, Ramadan means scorching heat. If you want to argue the definitions, be my guest. But when the details distract you from the whole story, because to the best of my knowledge, there is no unified theory of Islam, of cosmology, of history, of languages, of the unseen, of science. Because what does Allah say? The believers do not quarrel with each other except through jealous animosity. That is our problem. Thank you, Miss Ali. I appreciate that. The believers have the intention, obviously, to understand, to work righteousness in Allah's favor. But the human side gets in the way because it becomes about the people and not the goal. What goals would you like to see in the future? Do you want to see a Quran that's consistently translated? Where there's no excuses, there's no ambiguity, there's no abstractions, that has the full story, verbatim? Do you want to see a model of Islam that anybody can follow? Do you want to see a history of the world that doesn't exclude people who are not European, who are not Jews, who are not from the Middle East? Do you want to see an understanding of phenomena that science cannot explain, that are part of the unseen? Do you want to see a world cosmology that the Quran endorses that fits everything about our observed phenomena, that solves the issues, rectifies the gaps in our knowledge? Think about the goals you want. And if Allah wills, with His permission, He will let you attain that at the right time. The purpose of this life really surrounds this book. You guys probably already know, right? You guys are probably already aware. But I just can't overstate it enough, right? This is why there's been this gatekeeping around this book in particular. So that if you follow it alone to guide you to all the other answers, you're a Rashad Khalifa follower. You follow Dr. Hani Achan. You follow Sam Gerrans, etc., etc. You're a Sunni, you're a Shia, you're a Sufi. No. Those are just labels. I'm not here to start a religion or a cult, and I'm not here to push anything, just here to show you some of the ideas behind what the Quran is saying. Objectively. It's not a popularity contest. Most of humanity is astray. And trust me, it's a lot easier for me to keep things to myself and just never share anything freely available. It's a lot easier. It's just, I don't do these streams for myself primarily, it's just for the viewers. Because I feel that there is a duty to that where things should be made public if you believe them to be true, and not to conceal the truth while you know. At great risk to yourself because it attracts all kinds of negative attention, right? So, you know, whatever you may disagree, that doesn't take away from the point of why we're here. I imagine most of the people listening to this stream are believers in the Quran. They believe it's the word of God. They believe it's protected. They believe that what has been ascribed to the Quran is wrong. That should be the basis going forward, right? I can't really endorse any one person, right? Because we're human beings. But clearly, the nature of our world is that the information is scattered, has to be reconciled. And the only standard we have is the Quran. So, Shaitan has all kinds of different ways of making you overlook that. One way is you doubt the authenticity of the Quran, you underestimate it, you conclude that it's only scholars and rabbis or whatever can figure it out. You have the incorrect context or some kind of minuscule, mediocre context of what the Quran's story is. We need to do our due diligence. And that's not going to happen if you put forward a claim that you haven't investigated yourself. If something is a metaphor, if something is a whatever, time will tell. Don't worry. Time will tell for everyone what the truth always was. That's the nature of Allah. That's the nature of His word. But clearly, I have a problem when something like that is invoked because the translator cannot explain why that ayah reads what it says. Scribal errors? Really? It's like you put enough text and you think you can explain 2 plus 2 equals 5. You can't. The premise is wrong. The Quran is preserved. If you want to say everything's a metaphor, like Hani Atchen, basically everything's abstraction, then what's the standard? That's poetry. You're giving arbitrary meanings to things. And the conclusion from it is just inapplicable, nonsensical pseudo-wisdom. That's what the Quran is. It doesn't take you long to figure out something is false if you just reflect. But to prove something correct, definitively, it takes time. It takes effort. That's why it's work righteousness. So, that's the thing. Allah says, indeed, if it was from other than Allah, they would find in it much contradiction. If something conflicts with itself, it's wrong. Hadith conflicts with itself. The Bible does. The statements of David Ewing Jr. conflict with themselves. How can I follow that and not have more questions than when I started? The Quran alone followers that, I just want to highlight this, Govan. Thank you for the comment, by the way. The differences will be rectified in the end. Everything will be paired in its right place for the afterlife. I think the idea is the Quran is what you follow. And you can say, well, everyone's going to follow it differently, interpret it differently. No. Don't you see that there's an objective standard to this book? Yes, people interpret it different ways. That's observable, right? That doesn't mean the book has multiple interpretations. That means humans try to fit their desires into the book. Hence, all the sects of Islam. What if you find and conclude what the book is saying unilaterally? There's no sects involved, Govind. In fact, Allah talks about Shi'an, as a punishment, as an unfortunate consequence of human action. Shi'an, sects. And that's the thing. Until the standard works in every case, it's not the truth. If you can prove to me that this word means this exact thing in every case, fine. I'm willing to look at that. But what do most people do? This is just human nature. Everyone's done it. They take what they hear and they think, wow, that sounds very intelligent. I'm not going to think much about it. I'm just going to adopt this as my belief system. That's why you get sects. That's why you get followers and gurus. That's why you get tyranny in the world. That's why you get oppression. That's why you get slavery, impoverishment, mass injustice. So I think that at the end of the day, take things holistically. Not just separate points here or there, holistically. If the whole thing doesn't explain everything, it's the wrong model. So that will take a lot of time, right? It will take a lot of time and energy. But that's what the Quran is always meant to be. You're supposed to peruse the Quran. It's not light reading. It's not a storybook for kids, really. On the surface, yeah, it just seems like a bunch of disjointed stories that have no relevance to us today. But when you look into it, it's shockingly relevant and profound. That's why the creator did it this way. A good idea to keep in mind as well is that the Quran is really what salvation is around. You know why? Because what are you supposed to believe in? Allah, the last day, the angels, the messengers, the books. That information came from the Quran. We don't have any other document to show that. When somebody reads the Quran and they're not a believer, or Allah knows they will never be a believer, they read it and they get something in their mind about what it should be, so they can reject it. Hence, the Quran traps them. It's completely just. Everybody that's honest will derive the benefit from it. And everybody that has an agenda will ultimately be played in the end. That's how it works. So, yeah, I know you guys have a lot of questions and stuff. I probably should have kind of looked at the chat more. Every single detail about this book has to be explained methodically, and you know, in a way that it doesn't actually, you don't have to force the meaning in there. It just blossoms out. So right down to the markings, right down to the chapter titles, right down to the order of the surahs, right down to the language, right down to the diacritical marks. Everything. Everything has to be and subhanAllah, I mean, I think we're in a better position now than we were decades ago. But everything takes time, right? Everything has its opportune moment, right? So I think that as time goes on, things will start to click more. And for the people running the world and all of their minions and their various accounts and fake accounts and stuff, they're going to have a rude awakening when they realize that the promise of Allah is you will see humanity enter the deen in droves. That's not a sect. That's the deen. Swaths of humanity. And it's happening. It's happening. People are returning back to the central thesis of the Lord, the Quran. This book is supposed to send shivers down your spine. How profound it is. And clearly, what we have been given to explain it is so stupidly mediocre. It's amazing that it's gotten so much traction in the form of hadith or biblical studies or science or whatever. The Quran defies falsehood. It defies human excuses. It defies jinn and human interference. It defies the order of the day. Because it establishes the order for all time. And you're not here by accident. You're not. There's a guidance happening throughout the entire story of humanity. The messengers guided. They were guided. They didn't come there. They weren't born knowing everything. They were guided to a station of knowledge necessary to be an example for us. That's why just hold that true to your heart, that that guidance will come. Your efforts will not be wasted, as the Quran says, as long as you do it for Allah's favor. Don't try to impress people thinking like, oh, they're the knowledgeable class of... No, that's Allah's categories. He's the one who says who are the guided ones, who are the knowledgeable ones, who are the heroic ones, who are the chaste ones. He has that information, not mankind. So our standard is not society. Our standard is revelation. So I think, yeah, thank you so much, brother. I really appreciated that. It's been almost a year, subhanAllah, basically. I think just about a year since Endgame Islam and I have kind of merged paths. And yeah, I have to thank, David Young Jr. for creating the army or opposition or community of Quran alone believers to be even stronger than before he entered the scene. So I got to give him credit. If you hold to this book, you are going to find more of its evidence over time. If you hold to this book, you're not going to be deceived by the traps currently ready at the moment from Shaitan. If it doesn't make sense in the Quran, whatever you hear, whatever you come across of hadith, of reports around the world in your personal life, it's probably wrong. And yeah, what do you guys think about that? The story of humanity is still being played out. It's already written, but we're playing it out exactly on cue. Yeah, that's really all I wanted to discuss, because like everything that is done against you wrongfully is actually a blessing. Allah blesses you with the slander, unjust slander, right? Unjust things. And subhanAllah, like this is such an uphill battle. There's so little resources we have available at our disposal, and still we scare the living daylights out of people hiding behind accounts, trying to change the narrative, steer things. Still, little old me keeps them up at night. I tell you what, if you want to scare the ma'ashar al-jinn wal-insi, if you want to scare Iblis, the shayateen around you, believe in this Quran 100%, all of it. When Allah says that we believe in all of it, He really means that. Every single marking on the page, from beginning to end. I had someone comment me recently, I can't remember the name, but they messaged me saying, I've watched your channel and I've seen your videos, and it really made me appreciate that actually, for us to believe in this Quran, we actually have to believe in every single aspect of it. The surah titles, the chapter order, the diacritical marks, every part of it. That's what they're afraid of. Sunni Islam, they throw the Quran under the bus. Shia Islam, they believe in a different Quran. Everyone else, they don't even acknowledge it to be from God. So my word of advice is just keep studying this book as much as you can, trying to reconcile it with the world around you. The translations don't worry about that. Everything will be exposed in the end, right? And trust me, like I said, the resources we have are nothing compared to what these people have. And they still want to gatekeep the Quran. That tells you it's a possibility that's attainable. And trust me, the fact that they're forcing this narrative, this fake alternative narrative, just like they forced the mainstream one for the Quran, that tells you everything, doesn't it? That tells you absolutely everything. To gatekeep this book is the major conspiracy. How could it not be? Who has the power to overturn anything? Allah. If Allah gave you everything in a book to all mankind, nobody can touch it, protected by Him and the angels. That's the biggest weapon of all. You can bet all of the rabbit holes revolve around this conspiracy. all the lies, all the societal structures and histories and blah, 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 is meant to divert your attention away from this book. I can't stress it enough. Just can't. Whoever the Prophet Muhammad was, he understood this very well. Every follower of his example from the Quran, not hadith, from the Quran, will follow in his footsteps. Why? Because it's addressed to him and he's a believer, and it uses open-ended language. You, oh you who are believers, oh, we guided you. You were an orphan and we guided you. Allah does not mince his words. He means what he says. He says what he means. Does that make sense? Simple, easy, universal, inclusive. The truth. Allah says, we dash the truth against the falsehood, and the truth obliterates the falsehood. That's what's going to happen. The illusions will become clear, and you'll notice that they were illusions the whole time. The truth will remain. And Quran's the only thing that's remained amidst the purging of all the books. You can, like, they would not let any knowledge survive that is a threat to them. So don't get too attached to like the theories and stuff. Like, do your own research. Just reflect on these words, and trust me trust that God can guide whoever he wills. You don't have to join a cult or a religion. You don't have to sign a waiver. You don't have to stand on your head 5 times in the ritual, and you don't have to drink any blood. You don't have to humiliate yourself publicly. You don't have to sign your name away on a contract. You don't have to learn a bunch of like mumbo jumbo from a rabbi. It's freely available. And in our time, it's probably the most accessible it's ever been in recorded history, the Quran. So, yeah, I think that I've kind of ranted enough here. Thank you guys so much for joining me on this live stream. I hope some of these concepts are meant to kind of sow some seeds of understanding, regrow some of those neural pathways to, find the connections around you. This topic is endless, if you haven't noticed. Like Omar, Omar Abu Zaid, that's a whole live stream in and of itself. So I have to do things in bite-sized pieces, even if it's hours long. That's still like a summary. And hopefully, you can see that people that attack the Quran are on the wrong side of history. Just like the people that attack the people of the Quran are on the wrong side of history. Don't be bothered by them. That's a foolish attempt. Just like Iblis was a fool to his jinn kind, these people are fools on a greater level. They're just used to be sent to the same place as their master Iblis. So thank you so much. And may Allah guide us all and protect us and keep us safe. And really, inshallah, bring us to witness the hour and all of its marvels, to see the fulfillment of the Quran's words in actuality. And you never know, maybe when that gathering happens, You might find some familiar faces there. This is all part of the story. With that, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Peace, everyone.